Vusi, yours is an interesting journey. We don't find a lot of people in Africa choosing motivational speaking as a career. Can you tell us how you embarked on this journey?
Yeah, so I did public speaking in school, and I was, for my sins, quite good at it. So when I was 17, I won the world championship. And then when I was 19, I broke the world record in public speaking. And then I went and studied. I sort of thought, well, I'm clearly good and I can hold my own on stage. So I went and studied. I studied finance, and I worked a little bit in investment banking. And sooner rather than later, I suppose that calling came again. I really enjoyed what I did in finance, but I found it lacked a certain connection with people, and I wanted something where I could connect with people. And so I gave it all up. Quite literally, I just walked away from all of it, and I decided that I want to speak and do that for a living. And it's been an amazing 10 years now.
Wow. I'm just going to go back. You won the world record for public speaking. What did that entail?
So you go through, so there are competitions that are held every second year by a global body in public speaking, and they invite the best speakers from around the world, and you come and you compete, and it's like a World Cup. You go through rounds, and there's knockoff rounds, and then there's the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. So I won it when I was 17, went back when I was 19, and I set the world record at 19.
On the continent and also locally, we see a lot of international motivational speakers coming on board. Why do you think it is that we haven't had local African and South African well-known public speakers?
So it's a very good question. Very, very good question. I think those of us who work in the industry, myself included, are quite guilty of being so busy working that we don't focus on making sure that we're evangelizing the craft and evangelizing the industry. That's the first. The second is that I think South Africans by nature, and I speak from experience, are quite, what's the word? They're quite skeptical. So when you speak to them, they are quite skeptical. Whereas if you come with a bit of a foreign accent, there is a credibility that South Africans attach to it. I'm not sure why that is, but if you speak with a foreign accent, for some other strange reason, you'll sell more tickets to your event than a South African speaker would. That said, I have worked. In fact, last year alone, I worked in 17 countries. So I spent more time outside the country than I did here. I earned more foreign earnings than I did here. Don't tell SARS, please. But I can tell you right now that any South African speaker can hold their own against any global speaker. I'm in Morocco in 2 weeks' time. I was in London last week, and I guarantee you that if you're seeing a good top talent South African speaker, they can hold their own and compete with any speaker from around the world. I think it's fantastic that the speakers from other parts of the world are coming here, because they're clearly giving the spotlight the industry needs. But I do think it's something we as South Africans need to be careful of, to ensure that we don't get to the point where we support so much that which is foreign to ours. Because in essence, they do come here, but then they take the cash and take it to their own countries. And if we want to develop our own country and our own economy, we need to really think about how we're going to treat that.
Let's talk about Africa. Last couple of years, African economies have been growing. The middle income is rising. Have you found that that has necessitated a greater need for your craft?
Huge. Huge. I've been to Luanda twice, just this year alone. I'm going back to Luanda and Angola in 3 weeks' time. I was in Zimbabwe, Zaire, Zimbabwe and Zambia. I'm doing the DRC Congo in August. Massive, massive. You cannot imagine. Let me put it to you this way. For every inquiry I get from London, I'm getting 3 from other parts of the continent. It's huge. And also the industry is at its infancy. So there aren't many structures there. Whereas in South Africa, there's speakers agencies, there are gateway people. So there are speakers agencies and people that represent speakers, as is the case in other Western parts of the world. If you go to do business in Nigeria, it's usually going to be you and the client directly. So there aren't most of those infrastructures there. There aren't any showcases for speakers being held in any of those parts of the world, which is great, because it means we can get in, we can set up the infrastructures as South Africans, and we can conquer those parts of the market.
If you can just tell us about your typical audience.
Business. So I speak to business people. So really what we've done in our own organization, so I speak 99% of my time, and then I'm a chairperson of a small private equity firm. So what we've done is over the past 7 years, we've done research into what it is we believe separates great organizations from their mediocre ones. And we call that research the black sheep. And we looked at different industries over different times, and we did a peer-to-peer matching. So we'd look, for instance, at a ShopRite versus a Pick and Pay. Like-for-like revenues in 2002, and today ShopRite is almost 3 times times the size of a Pick and Pay if you just consider top line. And then we asked very telling questions around what it is that great organizations did versus those which they compete with who've not achieved the same or similar kind of results. And we took all of that and we published it into publishable works. And that's what I speak about. So most of my clients invite me wanting to find out one of three things. One, how do we become excellence? How do we become great and not good? Second, how do we do business in the rest of the continent? And third is how do we keep our people enthused about what it is we're trying to do?
Vusi, final question. In your industry, there's a lot of skepticism about what motivational speakers talk about and what value they bring, especially in the business world. How do you navigate around that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think that's really more a client question. I think clients today have to know what it is you're looking for and what it is you're getting. And so there are speakers out there that we just call hot air. You know, these are tough times don't last, but tough people do kind of speakers. You know, you walk out of there, you feel great and enthused. And so it's important for clients to begin to ask the telling questions around what is the track record of this individual? What have they done? Where have they done it? And what have they achieved? And what have they delivered in those organizations? Second is what is their content? And any speaker who cannot tell you what his content is the kind of speaker you don't want to hire. We call those speaker for hires. They'll tell your audience whatever you think that your audience needs to hear.
Vusi, thanks for your time.
It's been an amazing pleasure. Thank you, Kgosi.